Hello and welcome. I'm Mariana Trapnell, President and Chief Excel Geek at Accelerations and creator of the 5 Steps to Fast Reports method. If you've worked with me in the past, you probably already know I'm a big fan of making things more efficient in Excel. There aren't nearly enough hours in the day, and I'm always looking for ways to speed up my Excel basic tasks so that I can spend time working on the analysis, which is really what I'm interested in anyway. Why would I spend all kinds of time setting up my project file and then only spend 5 minutes at the end, because that's all the time I have left, looking at the results to make sure that the project is headed where it needs to go? Now, one excellent way to help speed things up in Excel is the macro recorder. Now, don't panic. When I say macro, do you envision all kinds of lines of indecipherable code? Are you worried I'm going to take you down a rabbit hole where all the hours remaining in your day will be eaten up just trying to figure out what it all means? No worries. The macro recorder lets you create macros on the fly without having to look at a single piece of code if you don't want to. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want Excel to perform the 30-odd tasks that it takes you to get your data looking the way you want it to each month, there's a small chance that you could even use the macro recorder for that. But don't worry, I'll take you through the basics and I'll show you how to use the recorder, and then I'll also show you some simple tricks on how to edit the code behind the scenes as well. All right, let's dive in. All right, so what is a macro? Basically, it's something that performs a specific action or sequence of actions. It's also repeatable, and most importantly, it's automated. So why would I create one? Well, if I have a task I perform regularly and the keystrokes are the same line after line, I might want to create a macro for that. So for instance, if I always bring in my data, I highlight the 4th and 5th rows, I delete those, and then I insert another row between rows 7 and 8, and then I color my headers blue and I put an underline under all of them. If I do that consistently every time I work with the file, then I could easily record a macro for that. Likewise, if it's something as simple as I need to color my font red and bold, but I do that an awful lot, I might want to just create a quick little macro that does that for me. Another reason you might want to create a macro is if the task is tedious and doesn't add value on its own. So if you're constantly moving from line to line to line to line and doing the same action over and over and over again on each line, you probably want to create a macro for it. Most importantly, you would want to create a macro to make my life easier, right? Anything we can do to make our lives easier in Excel, all the better. Okay, so how do you create a macro? Well, let's see. As I mentioned, it's the macro recorder we're looking for, which you can actually find usually in the bottom left corner of your screen here. You'll actually see there's a little button here that is the macro record button. Now, if you don't see that, what you want to do is right-click on the bar down here, and you'll get a whole list of possible things you could see on the bar, including macro recording halfway up. So just turn that on and you should see that button appear. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when you record a macro is make sure you're already in the cell you care about. So if I'm going to select this header, and let's say I always make my headers bold and underline and italic. So rather than having to hit bold, underline, italic, or even, for instance, come back to the Home tab and hit bold, underline, italic, I'm actually going to record a macro that just does it for me automatically. So I'm going to hit record down the bottom, and I'll just call it header prep. Okay, and up here, no spaces, no special characters. You could put an underscore if you wanted to separate the words, but that's about it. Okay, and then just leave everything else as it is for now, and we'll hit OK. Okay, so you can see our button has changed. It's now a stop button, and we'll just record our macro exactly where we want it. So as it says here, don't click anywhere else once you start recording, because guess what? Excel will record that too, and it'll say, okay, Mariana always wants to go to G35 when she runs this macro. And that's not really the case. I want it to do it whatever cell I'm in at the time. So I'm going to go bold, italic, underline. Perfect. And as it says, don't forget to click stop. So I'm done my macro, I'm hitting stop. Okay, there we have it, our first macro. Easy, right? Okay, let's test this out. Here I've got another header that I would always want to bold, italic, and underline. So if I go View, Macros, View Macros, and there you can see there's my header prep macro. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to hit Run. Oh, look at that. It bolded it. Perfect. And it's not limited to just headers either. If I really wanted to, I could highlight all these guys and do the same thing. View Macros, Run. Look at that. It's bolded and italicized and underlined all those as well. And just a word of warning, you can't undo with a macro. So I would actually have to put this back the way it was manually. So just something to be cautious of there. All right, so that is our first macro that we've recorded. Now, you're probably thinking, is Mariana nuts? That wasn't easier than hitting bold, underline, and italic. Well, don't worry, it will be. In the next video, I'll show you how to add that particular macro to a single button so that you have just one click to make it all happen. Okay, so now try it out for yourself and just record a really simple macro right after you finish watching this. That's right, go do it right now. You'll see how easy it is. And one point to be aware of, if you're asked when you close Excel, choose to save your personal workbook. You don't have to save the blank workbook that you're working in, but just make sure you save the personal workbook, and that way it'll be ready for you the next time. And as soon as you finish recording your macro, I'd love it if you would leave a comment below the video and let me know if it was a useful session for you. And also let me know what you recorded. I'm curious to see what kind of automations you want to put in place. All right, that is it for today, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.